Hey everyone, welcome. Layout update time for May 2025. Let's have a peek at what I got up to. There was no heavy construction in May. It was all about scenery, aspen groves, addressing texture, and adding additional color. And to understand why, I've got to take you back a few months in the calendar. So back in December, I was on a job site. Fluorescent fixture falls out of a 10-foot ceiling, smokes me right between the eyes. I didn't think much of it at the time, taped myself back together, and continued on. Beginning in the new year, however, my eyeballs started going south. Turns out getting clocked in the coconut accelerated an issue I was unaware I had, and by the end of March I'd lost 80% of vision in my left eye, 20% in the right. Fortunately, my optometrist was able to get me into a surgeon relatively quickly, and third week of April I got 2 new lenses installed. Now if you've had eyeball work done, you know that the first week can be a little trippy. Colors jump out at you, everything looks neon, and the brain needs some time to readjust. Well, I made the mistake of heading into the basement the first day after surgery and alarm bells went off. Everything looked wrong. I figured I was tearing stuff out, starting all over again. My wife, ever the voice of reason, convinced me a week away from the layout would be a good thing and banished me to the shop with instructions to go find something to do. Now back at the beginning of the year, I had 500 aspen trees built up, ready to go on the layout. I'd used 265 along Island Lake. The remaining 235 were earmarked for Drawbar Alley. Now I figured 235 would get me a good start up through the S-curves, but after planting close to 200, I realized I was going to fall short. So, given my wife's instructions, I figured padding the aspen stock might be a good idea. Initially, I was going to build 100 and continue planting, but I got on a bit of a roll, and looking over at the whiteboard, I realized I was getting close to a milestone. A good week's work and 300 trees later, I hit 1,000 aspens built for the layout so far. With 300 plus trees in reserve, it was time to get at it. But first, I had to take care of some backdrop work. When that was taken care of, I began planting trees. Trees are one of the most important components when it comes to establishing a linear flow, especially bright yellow aspens as they catch the eye. And once you've caught the viewer's eye, you can control how they see the layout. With that in mind, I was careful to lay out specific patterns of trees to enhance the perceived linear flow of the area. If you don't get the pattern right, you run the risk of bogging the viewer's eye in the corner, something I talk about in the video Avoiding the Scenic Trap. Now the number of trees you use can also directly affect how people perceive the scene. In this case, the top end of the curve at Drawbar Alley sucked up 90% of the trees I just built, and the entire scene that you see here has nearly 500 aspens in it. That represents some serious time building trees, but in the end I think it was well worth it, and I'm very pleased with the overall result. With my mission of getting aspens to the top end of Drawbar Alley accomplished, I then focused my attention to some color and texture touch-up work on the west end of the layout. Along the Island Lake area, I'd introduced some new underbrush with nice orange fall foliage. Happy with the results, I continued into the Crow's Nest and Summit Lake area with the same treatment. Now my layout is built in 5 separate shadow boxes, and Summit Lake is the western end of the 4th shadow box. Beyond that, in the 5th shadow box is Michelle Creek. Michelle Creek is an area I'd built several years back, and I had at that time included orange foliage. However, there were areas crying out for the same treatment that Island Lake and Crow's Nest got, particularly the banks along Michelle Creek itself. I really wanted to create some much needed contrast, so I liberally applied underbrush and that orange fall foliage to really set off the turquoise in Michelle Creek. And that was the month of May. Scenery is all about layers, and it doesn't take drastic change to make a difference. A little orange here and there can completely change the way we perceive a scene. They say a layout's never done, and that's certainly true for scenery. There's always room for one more layer. Feel free to stick around and do a little rail fanning. We've got westbound loaded oil cans climbing up towards Drawbar Alley. If you liked the video, you know what to do. Subscribe if you haven't already, and if you're interested in learning more about how I use trees to control the visual narrative, consider becoming a channel member. I just published a 25-minute long video for my members covering both the philosophies and techniques involved laying out the aspens up at the top end of the Drawbar Alley. Thanks so much for watching everyone. We'll see you next time.